We got a big update on Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua and our big takeaways from the Rams' first 5 games of the season. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramley, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams. Free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so if you haven't yet, do us a huge favor. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, hit the like button. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. I've been covering LA sports for over a decade, 24/7 sports, Bleacher Report, SI, Dodgers Nation, the Rams for Locked On. And as always, I'm joined by the Rams pre, half, and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio station, ESPN 710 LA. He's in his 9th season covering your Los Angeles Rams, the People Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him on X at Travis Rogers. On today's episode, big takeaways from the Rams' first 5 games of the season, Rams that should see more snaps after the bye, and we got a big Cooper Kupp update. But first, today's episode of Locked On Rams is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. All right, Travis, so bye week is over. It's time to get back to action. And one of the first big questions we have after the bye is, when will the Rams get Cooper Kupp back? Ian Rappaport, he tweeted out, wide receiver Cooper Kupp attempting to return from a high ankle sprain at a positive workout today, and his return this week is at least possible, sources say. The next step is to see when he practices and how it goes. The team will gather more info today, but they were presented good news. Jordan Rodriguez said that Cooper Kupp will not practice today, per Sean McVay, but will have a high workload session with Reggie Scott, and his reaction to that will determine whether he is available for the rest of the week. Then the game. Rams also heading into a short week in both games on turf. So McVay said it was a big week, a big Monday for him. And as you pointed out, you got 2 games on the turf. You got this short week. So yep. I think when you're looking at it, I would prefer possibly to have him back in the TNF game.
He's going to have to play them both. They have to beat the Raiders. I mean, if we're talking about them having a chance to make a run, right? You look around the rest of the NFL and you see some guys dropping. You see maybe some opportunities. You see some teams maybe coming back to the pack a little bit or whatever it may be. If they're serious about getting back into the playoff picture, as difficult as it may be, it does not exist without a win over the Raiders. I don't know. I mean, can they beat the Raiders without him? Sure. Do you like their chances without him? I don't know. Do you like their chances against anybody without him? I don't know. We'll see what it looks like. But I would like to see him play against the Raiders. I think that you have to start making some really hard decisions. Now, if he doesn't play, I think maybe that kind of indicates something else to you. Not necessarily that they're going to try to push harder later in the season, but rather maybe they're getting their ducks in a row to start making some moves. I think that has to be something that is at least, back in a very small room in the back of the facility that they're talking about privately. But if they're serious about making a run this season and trying to fight their way back into the playoff picture, you're going to need to see him against the Raiders because they need all hands on deck as soon as possible.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, you need to win 9 of your last 12 games potentially to get into the playoffs. And you look at Cooper Kupp and you look at Nacua, and the truth of the matter is yes, Tutu Atwell, Joe Whittington, DeMarcus Robinson, they did a valiant job in trying to fill in for those guys, but the offense isn't just the same. Even when you look at some of these drives where they have scored, they're these long, methodical drives. You haven't seen big explosive plays. You see them struggle in the red zone. And we know that Cooper Kupp, when he's right, he can help you in all those departments. Sure. So, yeah, it's one thing to miss your top receiver in Puka Nacua. It's another thing to miss both your receivers in Puka and Cooper Kupp. Puka goes down in week 1. Cooper goes down in week 2. So the sooner you can give him back, it does send the message about what the goal is for this season. Now, I do think that, yeah, sure, you could potentially have him miss this game and you feel good about him coming back if he's not at 100%. But, I mean, what's the big difference between 4 or 5 days, right? If the ankle is close to being right, the ankles will be close to being right. And you kind of just have to go with it if you're serious about making a run this year.
Yeah, and look, I don't want them to put anybody out there and put them at risk, but if there's an opportunity for him to play, I would like to see him play. there aren't a ton of games left. We're a third of the way through the season. They're going to have to start making some decisions about, is this a season you try to get into the playoff picture, or is this a season you kind of take a step back and reevaluate where you are? Can you acquire some different assets? I still think that there's a heartbeat. You know, to use a bad analogy, they're sick. They're in the hospital. They've got a lot of people working on him, but it's not over yet. They still have a chance, but a lot of people have to start playing sooner than later. You're going to have, you know, like you mentioned, you have the schedule is a little weird over the next couple of weeks because you play on Sunday and then you turn around, you play again, you know, basically 3.5 days later. It's a lot to ask. It's a lot to ask on a high ankle sprain, but Cooper Kupp is a tough guy. And I know if he's able to go, he would like to go. I think a lot of it has to do with whether or not the Rams believe they have a shot in this. And I believe that they think that they do. And I'm optimistic that we're going to get to see him on Sunday.
Yeah, and that hopefully is the case because Puka Nacua, Sean McVay said, is a ways away. And he re-injured his PCL. There was a 5 to 7 week timeline to get him back. But Sean McVay said about Puka Nacua, just really what specifically in his knee was aggravated and the typical timeline that is usually accompanied with that, based on his feedback and his rehab, there was always kind of a target date that they had tentatively set on when he could get back. And we'll see if we're exactly on that. It was really the nature of the injury and the significance of the sprain to the particular ligament that we were talking about. So that's a lot of, I don't know, it doesn't feel like they're very optimistic that he's going to come back soon. So Cooper Kupp, the sooner you get it back, the better. But yeah, not great news and a great outlook about Puka Nacua right now.
No, it's not, but they're in very different situations, right? That like, and this is where the NFL gets a lot less fun and a lot more brutal and a lot more, you know, just cutthroat and business. Cooper Kupp is not the future of this team. Cooper Kupp is the present and the past of this team. Puka Nacua is the future of this team. So you're going to handle those things perhaps a little bit differently. That, you know, the injuries are obviously different, but what they need from Puka Nacua this season is also what they're going to need from Puka Nacua the season after that and maybe the season after that. Cooper Kupp is very unlikely to be the future of this team beyond maybe a season or maybe a second one. But I think that factors into it too. And this is why I think the Raider game is so important. If you win, you can continue to fight. You can continue to push. You can continue to make decisions that are based on the present. If you lose to the Raiders, then it's about, okay, what do we do moving forward? 1-5. That's it. That you have to make very different decisions at that point. And I think Cooper Kupp's at the top of that list. Puka is going to be a Ram for a while. So the where you are in that entire decision-making apparatus is very different based on the players we're talking about.
For sure. And I think you look at where Puka Nacua is, you're probably going to see him against the Vikings maybe, but I think for sure against Seattle in week 9, that's more realistic target date. And the truth of the matter is yeah, this is someone you don't want to rush back because he's dealt injuries in the past. He's had the injury-prone label on him for most of his career. And when you're sitting at the record you're sitting at, you don't need to rush a guy like that back because he's a big part of your future. So I totally agree. Having said that, I mean, you get one win against the Raiders and you start to feel better about your season, and you go week to week and you see if you can make something out of this. We know the stats, we know the odds are stacked against you. There's no doubt about that, but this is a Sean McVay-led team. Sean McVay said to JB Long yesterday on the Sean McVay show that this is a team that's going to fight. They're going to come out swinging. So I don't care what the record is. That's the mindset, the mentality you want to have for your franchise. This is not a franchise that tanks or anything like that. So they're going to do everything they can to try to get this season back on track. But coming up next, we got big takeaways from the first 5 games of the season. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
All right, let's talk about FanDuel, NFL fans. You can start this season with a big return on FanDuel. Of course, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game and you're thinking, now might not be a bad time to get in there, you can check out all the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play. And, of course, there is so much more on the same page where you are placing your bets. So we're going to get you started at FanDuel with $200 in bonus bets. That's guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Let me say that again. $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Let's take a look at what's going on with the Rams and their game this weekend. The Rams are a minus 225, so the Rams are a favorite for the first time in a while coming into a game, and the over-under on this one is 44. All of this stuff and so much more is available to you at FanDuel, but you got to go to FanDuel.com. You got to put that FanDuel app on your phone, and they're going to get you started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Also, right, let's talk about PrizePicks. A little bit different, just as fun, right? PrizePicks, pick more, pick less. And it's not just football, it's everything. Think about what's going on right now. NBA, right around the corner. The NHL has started. The NFL is going on. Major League Baseball playoffs is going on right now. So why not have more fun with stuff that's already super awesome with PrizePicks? You pick more, you pick less. For instance, Justin Jefferson, more or less than 83.5 receiving yards. Patrick Mahomes, more or less than 267.5 passing yards. That's it. Pick more, pick less. With 4 correct picks, you can win up to 100 times your money at PrizePicks. But you can't win if you don't play. So download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDONNFL, to get $50 instantly after you place your first $5 lineup. Download the app today. Code LOCKEDONNFL. Get your $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. Run your game.
And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for being Locked On Rams, your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, a special shout out to those every listeners out there watching and listening to every single episode of Locked On Rams. And if you haven't yet, join the Every Listeners Club too. Just listen or watch an episode Monday through Friday, and you won't miss a thing about your Los Angeles Rams. All right, Travis, here in our second segment, got big takeaways from the first 5 games of the season. It is just 5 games, and I want to start with a positive one here because it has been the greatest first 5 games. It is the 2024 draft class. Looks like another dub for this organization. I mean, last year in 2023, you hit on Puka Nacua, Steve Avila, Kobe Turner, Byron Young. This year, it's not as much depth, but at the top, you've got some potential foundational players, guys who can be stars of this organization for a long time, and it starts with Jared Verse. Jared Verse has the second highest PFF grade for this team. He leads the team with 20 pressures. He looks like a perennial Pro Bowler. Braden Fisk on the interior line has done a really nice job. He's flashed potential. And something I know that you are very excited about is the play of Joshua Carty. Feels like they have their kicker for the future. You fix special teams. So, yeah, definitely you see Jordan Whittington and Bo Limmer in the 6th round. They've already produced and they've contributed early on this season. They've got exceeded expectations. So, yeah, it looks like the Rams have hit on another draft class in consecutive years.
Yeah, I think you bring up some good points here because they kind of got both ends of it right, which is, I think, in a perfect world, what you're hoping to do. You got the high end right in Jared Verse. You just mentioned it. Jared Verse looks like you want your first round draft pick to look like. Somebody that's going to make the Pro Bowl time after time after time. Somebody that's going to impact games. Somebody that you just notice right away that pops off the screen when you're watching games. So they hit exactly what you're hoping with a first round player. A guy that you put in, he's a starter right away. He's an impact player right away. And maybe if everything breaks right, somebody that you can build your defense around moving forward. So they, check the box right there on Jared Verse. That's great. I also like what you're talking about a little bit later in the draft. That, look, I don't think anybody was thinking that Bo Limmer was going to have to be a starter basically week 1 in this league. But they found somebody that at worst is a capable starter in this league and probably better, a usable depth piece moving forward in the 7th round. That's a huge win. Jordan Whittington, like you mentioned, this is not somebody that you had to spend a ton of draft capital to go get. And you found another player who's going to be a part of your offense moving forward. Maybe it's not that high Pro Bowl end player like Puka a year ago, but this is an NFL player. When you're finding starters, when you're finding quality depth pieces in the second half of the draft, in day 3 of the draft, late in day 2 of the draft, These are huge wins. You mentioned Josh Carty. Finding a capable NFL kicker is not easy, and it appears that they have found one along the way. So I'm with you. Those are some big wins for the Rams. Now, they got to continue to add more talent to this team moving forward, but I agree with you. I think that the last 2 draft classes for the Rams have been a very positive result.
No doubt about it. And there's still a work in progress, right? I mean, you look at Jared Verse, you look at Fisk, you look at Kobe Turner, this defensive line and the edge rushers. They're 5th in the NFL when it comes to pressure rate. 5th in the NFL in pressure rate, but just 5th lowest in sacks. So you got to get home. You got to finish the job. But the potential is there for an elite defensive front. So definitely see the potential there. Now, next big takeaway, not as positive, and that is that the free agent signings so far have not worked out. They've been disappointing, and you look at the top in Jonah Jackson. Jonah Jackson, he's missed significant time. Tre'Davious White, he's already been benched, and the secondary's improved with Darius Williams back. Colby Parkinson leads the team in targets. He has disappointed so far. Cameron Curl, he hasn't looked great. He kind of moved to a strong safety role. So far, these free agent signings that we were really excited about in the offseason because of the upside potential, because of your filling in a need in the offensive line, you want to focus on that. They just have not been to what we expected or hoped for so far through the season.
No, I guess if you're looking for a silver lining in their free agent signings along the way, we're going to count Kevin Dotson. You know, they re-signing their own guy. He at least has been available to play week in and week out.
And so he's our Guardian helmet guy.
Right. He's our guy. By the way, last night, Taylor Rapp, the former Ram,
I know, he's killing it.
Like, he got the extra size Guardian cap. Yeah. That one looked super jumbo. That was an interesting look out there, but whatever it takes for safety, right? The Rams free agents have not been good. Full stop, period. You know, that Dotson, sure. Everyone else, there's been a big question mark. You know, Jonah Jackson hasn't played. Cam Curl has not made an impact. Like you mentioned, Trey White, benched. Colby Parkinson, not the big target at the goal line that I think that they were hoping to use. You know, I really didn't think that we'd be here going into week 7 of the NFL season talking about how, you know, Tyler Higbee being down is a big, big loss. And it is. They really, truly miss him along the way. Nobody in that tight end room has really stepped up and filled the void left by Higbee's injury in the playoffs last year. We were hoping Parkinson would be that. So far, it hasn't happened. But yeah, Dotson, I guess, is about what you thought you were going to get, which is good news. But everyone else has really missed the mark.
Yeah, and with Jonah Jackson, there's still an opportunity to come back and help this team. It's just he's got to stay healthy. He's dealing with the shoulder injury. When he's in there, he's effective. I think the one for me, if I had to pick the one that's been the most disappointing, it is Colby Parkinson, because he leads the team in targets, leads the team in catches, but he's 4th in yards, just 8.9 yards per catch. And they've said good things about him and his impact on the team. But the truth of the matter is you're not seeing any explosives. You're not seeing missed tackles. I want to see more Davis Allen in this next part of the season. If you look at Davis Allen last season, he forced 4 missed tackles on 12 catches. This year, Colby Parkinson 0 missed tackles on 12 catches. He's just not elusive, and he has been the red zone threat, like you say. And then when it comes to Trey White, I mean, he's already been benched, and the secondary has been better because of it. So, yeah, still time to turn around, but so far that's been the case. Now, next big takeaway, and we'll go to a break here, is Ernest Jones. The Ernest Jones trade is still a little mind-boggling. It still is through 5 games, because you look at where the Rams were at. They trade him to the Titans for, you know, a bag of half-eaten Doritos and a better parking space, and you give Troy Reeder and Christian Roseboom the opportunity to take over, and you're 5 weeks into the season. Reeder and Roseboom, they have been towards the bottom of the league at their position. They have been extremely below average. And it's the thing that disappoints me is, look, if you're going to trade Jones, where's Omar Speights? Where's Jacob Hummel as far as possibilities in those situations? So, yeah, the Ernest Jones trade is still a little mind-boggling.
Look, I'm going to mix the two things that you and I love to talk about together. I want to bring up the Dodgers here real quick, because I think there's a 18
minutes in and no Dodgers. We are killing it
in the NLCS too.
This is a world record.
It is a world record. The more you change your pitching, the more times you go to the bullpen, the more likely it is that somebody doesn't have it on a given day. And all it takes is one guy that doesn't have it, and the thing breaks down, right? So, you know, when your bullpen's cranking and everything's working, it's like, yeah, just bring in the next guy. We'll keep throwing up zeros. Dodgers did it, and they're tied at a game apiece right now in the NLCS. That's good news. The Rams have made a series of personnel decisions that really have gone incredibly well. They finally made a decision that was a bad one. They finally made a decision that kind of blew up in their face, that this was their Landon Knack in the second inning yesterday, that this was the decision that I understand why they did it. They didn't want to pay that particular player that particular amount of money with an injury history the way that he had. They miss him. They flat miss him. He was an important, especially with Aaron Donald deciding to retire. And the leadership void that was left with Aaron Donald was going to land on Ernest Jones. And Ernest Jones seemed capable, willing, and excited to pick up that responsibility. Well, then he was gone. And I think it's not just that they miss his play, which they do. They also miss his leadership as well. And the Rams have made a bunch of good moves in the personnel department. They've made a bunch of good trades. They've done a lot of things that I really, really like. And this is just one of those things that hasn't worked out so far. Maybe in the long term, it was the right decision, but in the short term, they've really missed him.
And it's not like he's thriving in Tennessee and putting up a Pro Bowl year, anything like that, but still, he was a good fit and he understood the system. I think he would have mentored some of these young guys and the defense would have just been better for one season with him, but it wasn't the case. But coming up, more takeaways from the first 5 weeks of the season. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
Speaking of those baseball games, D-Mac, it is very, very likely that we're going to get some more home games here in Los Angeles. Of course, we've got a full Rams schedule still to go. The Lakers, the Clippers, the Kings, the Ducks. There's just a million things here in town to get to. You need a ticket. You need a ticket. And where are you going to get them? GameTime. Put the GameTime app on your phone because GameTime makes getting tickets to live events even easier than ever before. GameTime picks all of the fluff, takes it all away to show you only the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. You want to go see playoff baseball? GameTime has you covered. And the part that I like, the closer you get to GameTime, the actual game time, the lower the prices are going to get. So put the GameTime app on your phone. Curation makes it easy to save on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, anything that's going on in your area. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime picks. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create that account, terms apply. Redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download the GameTime app today. What time is it? Game time.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, so another big takeaway from the first part of the season is Mathew Stafford's numbers don't tell the full story, and is still a very capable quarterback at this stage of his career. You look at the numbers, Travis, 3 touchdown passes, 3 interceptions, averaging 247.6 yards per game. That is not Pro Bowl level production, but you have to also consider the facts. It's a makeshift offensive line. You're missing your top 2 receivers. You're looking at a team that has been in games. You lose 3 games by less than a touchdown, right? So I think when you look at Mathew Stafford, you're still seeing the arm strength. You're still seeing sidearm throws. You're still seeing him as far as the ability to hit open guys. Yeah, those are definitely still there. Did have his best game against the Packers, but still I think that, hopefully Mathew Stafford's best football is in front of him just like it was last season.
Let me ask you this. What did you make of him on TV over the weekend?
I was just going to ask the same thing. I swear I was going to ask the same thing. I was distracted by his hair a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I didn't see him either in the helmet or the backwards Dodgers hat, right?
Yeah.
But I liked it. I mean, it was.
I thought he was pretty good at it.
Yeah,
I thought he was pretty good at it. I just thought it was interesting that he was on at all. And I'm not one of these guys, you got to be studying the playbook. That's not my thing.
Back in the batting cage.
Yeah, dude, he gets a week off. We all get a week off. That's fine. He wants to go do whatever he wants to do. Good for him. He wants to spend it being on the set of a television program. Good for him. Usually you start doing those things when you start thinking about what's coming up after you're done playing football. And that's why I bring it up. I don't know if it was just it'll be fun, or I don't know if this is hey, let me see if I'd actually like to do this rather than get hit in the mouth by 340-pound guys, right? And I don't know the answer to that. but that he was out there, let me ask myself that question. I think this year for him has been a bit of a mixed bag. I think he's been good at times, and I think he's been less good at times. It's not that he's not capable. He's incredibly capable. Like you said, his arm is still as good as ever. His decision-making is still as good as ever. His understanding of the NFL is probably better than ever. I think that's one of the things that you continue to get better and better at the more you're in the league. Getting hit probably sucks, Doug. It probably really sucks. And if you have $300 million in the bank or whatever Mathew Stafford has, I would imagine the thought crosses your mind occasionally of whether or not you want to keep getting hit in the mouth. And this is I'm not saying this is what he's doing. I'm saying this is what's going through my head. And this team right now is not very good. Now, maybe there's an opportunity for this team to get good this season. Maybe there's an opportunity for this team to get good by next season, and he wants to stay around. But put all the pieces together. There was a contract, I don't want to say dispute, but there was a contract disagreement at the beginning of the year. Team's not playing very well. He's probably not at his absolute best right now. All of these things add up to, is it time to go to the next spot? Is it time to hang it up? Is it time to double down and go through this season? There's, with Mathew Stafford, for the first time in his career as a Ram, there's a little I wonder what's going to happen next with this guy. It's really the first time that's ever crossed my mind with him. I don't know the answer. I think we'll get more answers the deeper we get into this season and beyond. But for the first time, I wonder if he's going to be here for next season or the season beyond that. I never thought that until now.
It's funny because usually I'm the guy, I read way too deep into things. And the first thing I was thinking when I saw him in the suit was like, yeah, next time I want to see this guy in a suit, it's in a gold jacket after winning the Super Bowl with the Rams, right? Or this is someone who has made it very clear he wants to make the Hall of Fame, and we've had that debate. I mean, he's someone that definitely could use another deep run in the postseason and another Super Bowl run to get there and possibly another ring. But still, I think that, you got to be laying the groundwork for what you're going to do after football. It's in Los Angeles. The studios are in Los Angeles. They're by SoFi Stadium, so it makes a lot of sense. But I'll tell you the truth. The second I saw him on the screen, the very first thing I did was Google Michael Strahan's age. So I was like, how the hell does Michael Strahan look younger than Mathew Stafford? Right? I mean, this dude's 52. He's looking pretty damn good.
He looks good. You make Michael Strahan money, you're going to look good too. There's a lot of things that you can do with that.
True, man. He's killing the game for sure. Stafford, I still think he's got it though. He's got to get his weapons back. Got to get some stability on the offensive line. The truth is, this guy loves the ball, man. I mean, this guy is going to be tough. You're going to have to drag him off this football field. I think as long as he's healthy, he wants to give this 2-3 years possibly. Just has to find the right situation. I'm hoping that situation's here with the Rams. But that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. And you can follow the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers, at Travis Rogers. And until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.